Start your engines. The Syracuse Nationals rolls into Syracuse, New York, July 18th through the 20th for its 25th anniversary. Experience the largest car show in the Northeast with over 7,000 vehicles. It's 3 days of hot rods, classic cars, live entertainment, and family fun. Mark your calendars and make the Syracuse Nationals part of your summer plans. Buy your tickets, register your ride, and get all the details at SyracuseNationals.com. Syracuse Nationals. It's worth the drive.
Vehicle availability cannot be combined with other offers. Both offers plus tax $197.50 dock fee. DMV Extra. See store for details. Ends 6/2/25.
WTLA North Syracuse, WSGO Oswego, W249BC Mattydale, W261AC Oswego, WTKWHD2 Bridgeport, ESPN Radio.
Fran Brown this, Fran Brown that.
If you want me to take a lie detector, Brian, I'll take it.
Portal watch this, Portal watch that.
The dog Mama Duke. People say I like that dog.
What are you talking about playing walk-on? Who do you think walked onto the team?
Anybody that thinks this is going to come back is either naive or plain stupid.
All across CNY.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
It's the 315.
Hardy faking, feeds the Grace Jameson. He
scores! Woo! Here's Brian Higgins.
Happy Monday, everyone. How are we doing after a wonderful weekend all across Central New York? Capped off by an electric lacrosse game in the Dome last night. We'll get into that throughout our 2 hours together today. But what's going on here in Utica, Rome, the Cuse? I said that in a different order today. That's how crazy the MLAX game was last night. Absolutely bonkers. What's up on Cuse Sports Talk? Get in the chat, the YouTube, the Twitch, QSportsTalk.com. Come hang out for the next couple of hours. We will break down that lacrosse game last night. Just utter pandemonium inside the Dome. Great involved crowd. And a big win for the Orange, advancing to take on Princeton. What year is this? 1998? The Orange and the Tigers. We've done this a time or two, though not recently. At this time of the year, that game will be Saturday, Hofstra, scheduled for 2:30. The second game of the quarterfinals. The schedule gets a little nebulous on the timing of all that, but we'll get in that today. Defensive coordinator John Odierna. I believe I saw him just running around in the background of the highlight after the game-winning goal. We'll get him on at 4:30 today. We'll crack open the phone line throughout our 2 hours together for your calls at 315-437-7644. Talk some MLAX, talk some other stuff as well. Busy weekend for Fran Brown on the curtain trail. 4-star wideout in the fold. We know the first kick time of the season. Well, it's not the first kick time of the season. It's actually the 11th kick time of the season, but it's the first one we know. We'll tell you about that, where Cuse and Notre Dame on November 22nd will be heading on your television and on your calendar. So we got all that coming up today as well. But the highlight of the weekend for sure on the Cuse side of things is, I don't want to say everything, but the last 20-ish minutes or so that happened on the MLAX field in the Dome last night. With that, welcome in on a Monday. Let's get it going.
We start with the Burdick BMW opening drive.
Yeah, where else to start but with that game last night? Totally bonkers game in the Dome last night against Hartford. A snooze fest, at least for Syracuse in the first half, down 8-2 at the break. You know, gained a little traction in the third quarter, but didn't really get all that much closer. Still down by 4, by 5, early in the fourth quarter. And then a couple of penalties and an epic run. And then blew the game by giving up the game-tying goal with 6 seconds left. And then win the game in overtime with Owen Hiltz, who frankly had a horrible game for his perspective in the first 3.5 quarters. His only goal of the game on his 10th shot of the night happened to be the game winner in overtime as Syracuse advances to take on the Princeton Tigers coming up on Saturday. Man, oh man, just an absolute epic game in the Dome. Was it one of the best games of all time? Yeah, I mean, that might be a bit much, but here's the difference between Syracuse and basically every other program in lacrosse. With everybody else in lacrosse, yeah, that is one of the best games of all time. With Syracuse, they're like, yeah, just put it in the catalog. We got 100 of them because this is Syracuse lacrosse. One of the friends of the show, the CEO of Inside Lacrosse, Terry Foy, tweeted sometime, I think, when the Orange were in the middle of their comeback, Syracuse is Syracusing, because that is what Syracuse lacrosse is. Win, lose, or otherwise, Syracuse lacrosse over the decades now, the good years, the bad years, or whatever, they are always interesting, never dull. They are the best entertainment bang for your buck in Central New York, because that last night, while insane, while crazy, while epic, while still hard to believe in many ways, is something you get like 2 or 3 times a year. They'll drop one of those things in your lap. But a totally crazy game in the Dome last night as the Orange advance. John Mullen, in many ways, the star of the game, goes 24 of 28 from the faceoffs. Syracuse had the ball basically the entire second half, which was helpful. The Orange were a mess of turnovers in the first half, had 20 for the game, which not ideal. Not ideal in any which way, but we're able to survive it. And in many ways, it was the mantra of Syracuse lacrosse. The head, heart, hustle, right? The never give up. The, we're getting killed, but who cares? The Orange still figured out a way to rally back into that game and win it. And I think what we're to find out here going forward, now Syracuse has won 3 in a row. They've won the ACC championship. They've dug out of their own grave and beaten Harvard in the opening round of the tournament. Will this play forward into next week? Princeton annihilated Towson on Saturday, which really doesn't have any bearing on this game other than Princeton's really good. They're the number 3 team in the country. They're no slouch. But is there momentum off a game like this for Syracuse? The Orange played the best game of the weekend. Well, the most exciting game of the weekend. Other teams probably played better than Syracuse. Hello, Notre Dame. Yikes. Going into Columbus and just absolutely stomping Ohio State in a game that I think a lot of us thought was going to be a 1-goal game. But Syracuse is now in it with a chance to get back to the Final Four, which at halftime, early third quarter yesterday, you weren't feeling it. You always knew in the back of your mind, well, and this was really the only thing that you could have hung your hat on during yesterday's game. Well, you're down 6 at the half. That's not good. But this is Syracuse lacrosse. And that was really the only thing you could hang your hat on at that point. It's like, well, there's no good reason to win this game right now. They are dominating faceoffs, but it's not really helping. But this is Syracuse lacrosse. Seen this again at time or 20 or 50. So there wasn't any logic to it. Could they come back? Well, it's Syracuse lacrosse. I've seen stupider things. And they Syracuse lacrosse themselves out of the corner and somehow made their way into the quarterfinals of the NCAA tournament. And, man, they couldn't get out of their way at various points. The turnovers, it's May. Those were February turnover numbers. That wasn't good. That wasn't good. And then, end of the game, Gary, a little time out there with about 30 seconds to go, 20 seconds to go, and Sam English is running for his life in the box, and you had one left. That would have been useful. That would have been useful. Then you give up the game-tying goal with 6 seconds left, but still had the composure. And there you go. Win the face-off. You've got the only possession of overtime, and you bang the game winner. But just a fantastically compelling game. And, I go back to what we talked about all last week with the lacrosse guys, and it came from Michael Grace, who, this was prior to the ACC tournament, told the guys, hey, we got to have fun. This is fun. This is lacrosse. This is fun. Well, last night was a little bit of fun, right? Last night was fun. And, even in a lacrosse game, that was not a workmanlike comeback. That was a kooky, crazy, zany comeback. You're celebrating. People are running around all over the place. But yeah, that was a lot of fun coming back to win a game like that. And you know who I could tell had a lot of fun was the crowd. I had Tim and Kyle. You know, we were rocking the TK app. Had Tim and Kyle in my pocket last night. As the first like legitimate nice weekend of the year. You got to cram. You got to cram like a month's worth of yard work into like 6 hours. So we were getting stuff done while listening to Tim and Kyle in the Woo Fest last night. But in the comeback, like starting somewhere early mid fourth quarter, and Tim mentioned it a few times. Like at one point, the crowd just stood up, started making noise, and 5,000 plus, and it's the playoffs. So that's a real number because, you know, the NCAA, they got your hand in your pocket a little bit on these playoff games. You don't you don't enhance the attendance on playoff games. That was the real number in the building last night. Like the crowd stood up, started cheering, and did not stop the rest of the way. Usually the crowd noise is more like a roller coaster, like they rise and then it falls back down a little bit. This was like a roller coaster, but it started high and it never came all the way down the hill. It was an impressive outing from the crowd last night with how they were in it, and it all paid off at the end.
Golden goal, pass to a cutting Hiltz. He darts in, he scores! Owen Hiltz, the senior leader, sends the Orange to the quarterfinals off a feed from Spolina, and an epic comeback in one of the craziest lacrosse games you'll ever see. The Orange advance past Harvard in overtime.
That is I don't have official numbers on this. That is an extremely rare triple woo from our guy Kyle Federley, who I think we think we've wrangled Kyle into coming on the show tomorrow. He's still resting from all the woos, or he's playing golf. It's one or the other, but we'll get Kyle on the show tomorrow to break down the triple woo. I'm trying to remember, like there's not a lot of triple woos. On like the Mike Breen bang scale, I think the triple woo is like the double bang. Like they're historically rare. The double woo is just like a single bang. Like that happens all the time. But yeah, this was a rare one. For any other program, it might have, like if the game had done that yesterday, let's say everything reversed. Let's say Syracuse was up 8-2, Harvard made the crazy comeback, Harvard won it overtime. Let's say it played out all exactly the same, but the teams were reversed. That would be, for Harvard, the craziest, zaniest win in the history of their program, and they probably wouldn't have to think twice about it. Harvard would be like, wow, this is unparalleled, top of Mount Everest, best game that was ever played. For Syracuse, you're like, man, that was a great game. That was probably an all-timer. And then you start thinking, we'll get into this later. And you're like, yeah, but that game was pretty good too. Well, I was at that one. That was pretty good too. I didn't see that one. That was a long time ago. But yeah, I've heard tales. That one was pretty good. And then you just start going, and you realize, like by the time you get to the end of thinking about it, like, man, Syracuse plays a lot of absolutely freaking nutball lacrosse games just all the time for 40-some-odd years consecutively. They play nothing but bonkers, asinine lacrosse games for 4 months straight every spring, nonstop. I think back to like 2017, they played 10 straight one-goal games. It didn't stop for 2.5 months. But man, oh man, just a crazy game last night and a great win. And now you look back at the preseason expectations, number 2 in the country. Now you're 1 win away from the Final Four. The funny thing, though, about Syracuse lacrosse, and we could ask John Odierna about it, it's like, oh, does this lift a monkey off your back or something like that? I don't think this changes anything at all about like going forward for Syracuse because it's Syracuse lacrosse. The same reason they play in all of these games, the same reason they have all of this history is the same reason that I don't think winning this game is going to lead them to either riding too high or riding too low going into the game next week, because winning a zany nuts game like that is just kind of part of the fabric of the program. And while they're trying to get back to a Final Four for the first time in 12 years and win a championship for the first time in 16, a game like that yesterday is part and parcel of the whole thing. You don't win championships without winning games like that. 09 Cornell. 08 Virginia, double overtime semis. 04 Navy, wild, back and forth, like a 10 lead change title game, whatever it was. Those are the last 3 championships. You always have one along the journey, if not more. Could this be one that leads the way? There's been plenty of years where there's been a game like that along the journey, and it's not worked out in the end. So we shall see where it goes, but it'll be like old times last week. It'll be like when Powell's were running around, because it will be Syracuse and Princeton playing in the playoffs. This is the first Syracuse-Princeton playoff game since 03. I think it's been a minute. It's been a long time since Syracuse and the Tigers have run into each other in the postseason for sure. So more on this as we roll along in our 2 hours together. Would love your thoughts on what you saw last night or other crazy Cuse lax memories you have that may top that one from last night. We'll get into that as we go along throughout our show today. With that, we'll put a cap on our Burdick BMW opening drive here on a Monday. With that, let's see how the week is starting on the old market. We bring in our guy Bill from Lee Baldwin. All right, Bill, how'd this week start for you guys?
Great start to the week. One of the best days of the year as the U.S. and China agreed over the weekend to temporarily halt tariffs and work on a better agreement. The Dow jumped over 1,000 points, 1,100 points to be exact, nearly 3%. As crazy as this year's gone, that's not even the best day of the year, but it was a phenomenal day. And if you can believe it, you could... A couple weeks ago, when we were in a 20% correction, you could have told clients, don't worry, we'll be near all-time highs in about a month, and that'd be right. We're higher now than when we were any time in April, so amazing turnaround. Plenty of diamonds today, as anything that was stuck in caught up in the China trade tariffs did well today. Tesla up 5%, Apple up 6%. The chip stocks, like local Micron, jumped 7%, so all diamonds today. And on the dog side, not many, but Trump is trying to reduce drug prices out there, trying to help the senior citizen and everyone else. So a number of drug stocks like Cigna, a middleman in the drug pricing war, was down over 5% today. So great day today.
All right, we like that, Bill. A great day to start the week here in the middle of May. There is Bill from Lee Baldwin with all of the diamonds and none of the dogs. More information at leebaldwin.com. leebaldwin.com. We'll hear from you next. Phone lines open, 315-437-7644 for ESPN 44. Syracuse defensive coordinator John Odierna will be with us coming up around about 4:30 to break down whatever the hell it was we watched last night. Still trying to wrap our brains around that. With that, we'll step aside for a few. Back in on a Monday after this. It's Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Oh boy, the little plastic cover over line 1 on the screen color broke. We need to steal a different plastic cover, or else how will we properly screen the calls? Like, I'll say like the 2009, the Cornell game, like most of that game was actually boring, but the last 5 minutes makes you not give a crap about the first 55. It was so good. How are we doing, chat? How are we doing? Yeah, you don't want both to slide off. Sometimes you want sometimes you want to force the long ball to make a pass. It depends who the guy is, Tronic. But yeah, you don't need you need to communicate so you know who's going and who's not. Hell of a game, though. Possible sports boy. Tim, I'm sure Tim will drop it later. The Princeton face-off guy apparently was really good last year, then struggled most of this year, but is playing well like the last few weeks. So we'll see. Comeback of the year? Yeah, comeback of the year. But Syracuse is good for one of these every year, it feels like. At least. Or blowing a lead like this every year. You know, either or. I mean, you can't hit people in the head, Randy. Should have been a 2-minute penalty. Like, you can't. They've, in the last decade, the penalties that have gotten the most severe in the sport are head hits, as they should. You just can't hit a dude in the head. Just cannot hit people in the head. How they looked at that on replay and didn't turn it into a 2-minute penalty, I have no idea. But then also, you know, what concussion protocols? Like Spallina was on the field assisting, like on the next goal, like 4 seconds later. It's one where maybe like 15, 20 years ago, Randy, you say, oh, all right, good aggressive penalty. But with the rules today and the severity of the rules on head hits, you have to have awareness of where you're at. But then Figueres like tackled a dude like a couple of minutes later and then didn't call anything. So who knows? Who were the refs in the game last night? Where do I have the stats? Who was on the game last night? Brian Luxinger, Tim Luxinger, Daniel Belk. Two of the refs have the same last name. You know, a lot of the conversation as we're back here on this Monday, phone lines open, 315-437-7644. John Odierna coming up, 4:30. A lot of the conversation I feel around this game is, bonkers comeback and all that. But then there's the, you're awash in the immediacy of it. Is this one of the best lacrosse games in the history of Syracuse? You're like, well, it was a great game. It was a fantastic game. It was a memorable game. Well, we think it was a memorable game. We'll see. It's also one of these things where if Syracuse goes out and loses this week, which Princeton looked great on Saturday, they took Towson and they found some woodsheds and they went behind them. I mean, Towson, they obliterated Towson. What was it, 22-12? I mean, they whooped them up, down, left, right. I mean, it was an epic beatdown they put on Towson. Syracuse could quite easily lose this game on Saturday. And people, well, what effect does that have on this game? Well, you remember the games more if they then lead to something, right? Like a lot of the games we talk about as being the greatest games in program history. We hear the call every day to start the show. The Kenny Nims game tire in the 2009 Cornell game. Like, it's one of the all-time lacrosse moments. Well, it's one of the all-time lacrosse moments because Syracuse won the game and won the championship. There have been plenty of games over the years. It's a great game comeback. If you don't win the title that year, like the path there is part of it. Now, if you somehow go and win the next 3 games, this comeback is etched in the all-time annals because without that, wow, could you imagine Syracuse? They wouldn't have won the title if they hadn't dug out of a 6-goal halftime deficit in the first round of the tournament. I started thinking, and was it a great game? Yes. But the beauty of Syracuse lacrosse is this game was one of many. Like, well, is it a great game? Well, yeah, there was 09 Cornell. And, you can't forget the 89 title game, Gary Gate and Quick Kesnick and Dave Petramala and Matt Palem and that whole thing, that was an all-timer. Then you're like, well, there was the first title game. The Orange was stuck 7. What was it against Hopkins in the third quarter of the 83 title game? That was probably a pretty good one. And you're like, well, that 04 Navy title game, that doesn't get talked about a lot. That was a great game. Like, man, I remember that 08 Virginia semifinal game, double overtime, Mike Lavelle, John Galloway. That was a good game. Then you're like, well, there was a couple of those ACC championship games. Those were kind of fun. Then you're like, well, 22-21 against Virginia. I get that was the regular season. That was kind of hallmark. And then it's eye of the beholder, right? You can go down this path, go down that path. I'm like, well, they played 10 one-goal games in 2017. It's all kind of a blur, but some of them had to be pretty good, right? And like, then they play 7 or 8 one-goal games in 2013, including a comeback late one-goal win in both the quarters against Yale and then the semis against Denver. Yeah, I guess that happened. So there's a bajillion of these games in Syracuse lacrosse history, and that is the beauty of Syracuse lacrosse history. That is the tapestry of Syracuse lacrosse history. It's not just yesterday. A lot of programs, it would be just yesterday, or they'd have like 4 other games and be like, yeah, that is a top 5 all-time game. Because they don't have a litany of crazy, kooky, dead-to-the-world comebacks. But context matters, right? Context always matters. Let's see Syracuse wins next week. All right, they made it back to the Final Four for the first time in 12 years. Couldn't have done that without the 6-goal comeback win against Harvard. Let's say they beat Maryland, perhaps, in the Final Four. Syracuse has beaten Maryland for the first time in ages. They're going back to the national championship game for the first time in 12 years. ... comma. Couldn't have done that without the 6-goal comeback win against Harvard in the first round. Let's say Syracuse, in a rematch of the 2009 national championship game, one of the greatest crazy comeback finishes of all time. Let's say Syracuse breaks Cornell's heart yet again in the national championship game. Couldn't have done that without the 6-goal comeback first round win against Harvard. So you see where it goes. Like, it was a phenomenal comeback yesterday. Phenomenal. There's no denying that. There's no doubting that. But until we have a proper historical perspective of it, which being the playoffs means how do the rest of the playoffs go, that directly determines where a game like this lands. That's where I think, I look back at, we always consider the Jerry run down at MSG, like, I always consider that it's like one game, even though it was 4. And that's why that was so rare in that, yeah, there was context, and winning the ACC tournament was hugely important, and it was a great moment and all that. But Syracuse lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament that year to Texas A&M. And I've not yet met one person that's a Syracuse fan walking planet Earth that cares, because of what he did over those 4 days down there. And that, in many ways, it's one of the very rare few, if only, Syracuse sporting moments like that, where the context of like the finish of the season didn't negatively impact the great moment that came before. It's very rare. It's very rare. Usually, okay, that was great, but what did it lead to? Like, there's 6 overtime. Like, there's some that stand on their own. Yesterday was great. Don't get me wrong, it was great. It doesn't necessarily stand on its own, but that's just due to the context of the history of Syracuse lacrosse. If there were 0 banners up there, it might stand on its own. There's 11. So it stands as a potential launching point to what's to come here for hopefully the next couple weeks here in the rest of the month as we head toward Memorial Day weekend and the Final Four in Foxborough, where that Cornell game did happen, where the Virginia double overtime semifinal win the year before did happen. It's Syracuse lacrosse. History is around every corner you turn. With that, we'll take a break. See what John Odierna thinks about it. He is the defensive coordinator. We'll see if he's breathing okay. Yeah, we'll see if the heart rate is dipped back down since that one yesterday. John next year when we come back here on this Monday. It's Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
The Sports Show with Cody Mack.
That is not what I recorded before.
That was Natalie Imbruglia, San Diego Cuse. Whatever happened to Natalie Imbruglia? Melissa with the resub. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah. Prince is really good, Super Cat, and beating Maryland in the playoffs in the last decade is rather tricky. Who's Maryland playing this week? Maryland's got Georgetown. I assume Maryland wins that game. Georgetown in the quarterfinals are not the best of friends. Syracuse beat Georgetown in a crazy one-goal game at Sholkoff in the quarters in 04. Wear it, Waleed Haj. So the more you start thinking about it, you're like, wow, Syracuse had a lot of crazy games. You have a good show, Paulie. That doesn't make any sense.
Higgins household.
I marinated some chicken breasts in a bag this morning, so I think Christina's grilling them.
I thought chicken thighs. I think I might throw them in some teriyaki sauce.
I did some lemon with olive oil and seasonings.
I'm gonna mow my backyard. I mowed my front yard over the weekend, but my mower kept stalling because the grass was.
Yeah, I started mowing Saturday. And I'm stall. So then I had to. I raised it all the way up. I mowed 2/3, and then I had to leave some of it because it was still just squishy.
Yeah.
So then I dropped it back down to normal length and mowed the other 2/3 again. So I was just mowing for hours, and there's.
I got frustrated, so I just mowed the front lawn. Now
yeah, I still have I went this morning maybe I can mow the rest before work today, and squish. It's gonna rain tomorrow. I don't know what to do. I haven't done that. Then right next to my house is just the Amazon stuff. I'm too tired to do this now. Yeah. Yesterday I planted most of our garden because hadn't been able to do that yet. It's fun doing an entire month of yard work in a day and a half. I'm the lawn service, Melissa. No, if anyone would like to pay for my lawn service, I'd be happy to have one. Yeah, no clumps. Had to mow it once, raise the deck all the way up because I literally, like Paulie was saying, I started with a normal height, stalling. All right, raise the deck all the way up. So we quit the stalling issue. And then mowed it all again. But there's still a corner, it's the side of my house that doesn't get as much sun. It's just still a squishy mess. Oh, what did we plant the other day? Well, we set it all up. We set it all up. We've got some peas in the ground, some beans in the ground, some cucumbers in the ground. We planted some Brussels sprouts, which haven't grown before. Some beets, haven't grown that before, and some radishes, haven't grown that before. Planted some carrots. Went with the multicolored carrots this year. Some Swiss chard. Haven't done that before, but Max randomly picked a package of that because he liked the look of it. And some arugula. Then the other garden set up that allows for more sprawling vinage. Got some pumpkins, some melon of some kind, some corn that will get eaten by birds.
On 5, here's Brian Higgins.
All right, back at it here on this Monday. We'll reopen the phones here in a bit, but we just need to check in on the LAX team to make sure everyone's all right. After that one yesterday, like heart levels have dropped back to an acceptable level. Season not over, ready to go on from Princeton next week. With that, we bring on Orange defensive coordinator John Odierna. John, how we doing right now? How we doing after that one yesterday? You doing okay here? Less than 24 hours later.
Doing great. Just glad we have more playoff lacrosse to talk about and more time together as a team. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks as always for coming on, John. And I think I saw you in the highlight of the winning goal running off the sideline at some point. What's the celebration of a moment like that like down there?
Yeah, a lot of emotions. Obviously, a lot goes into this. You sacrifice a lot as a coach, and you love the guys, and you just want the season to keep going. So I think whatever you're seeing at the end of that game is pretty raw reaction. I think it was some type of low fist pump thing. The guys were watching it in the locker room and laughing about it. So, and I've had it sent to me a few times. So I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did notice a fist bump going on there. It was a little subdued Tiger Woods-ish fist bump situation, I think, there. But you're down 6 at the half. Take me into the halftime locker room. What's going on there? Is it same old business like we've been here before, or is it different at that point because it is the playoffs?
No, I think it was, I don't want to say same old business. Obviously the stakes are super high and the guys are super aware of the stakes. And I think at a place like Syracuse, you take that and times it by 100 with the pressure here. So I think we were all pretty aware of the stakes, but I think the belief never wavered. Honestly, we used a little bit of what happened in the first game as fuel. If they could come back from down by 5, why can't we? And I think there was just some belief there and just knowing, with our offense, with Johnny Mullen at the faceoff X, we felt like the game was never going to be out of reach as long as we could start to chip away. There's no six-pointer. You just had to make one play at a time, one on each end of the field, one between the lines, and we could just start to dig away at the hole.
It also feels like, to me, John, you're new-ish anyway to Syracuse lacrosse, at least in the grand scheme of it, having been around here for the last few years. But you're aware of the history of the program and have watched it. Like, comebacks like that are oddly, seemingly baked into the DNA of Syracuse in the way they're not for other lacrosse programs. Does that just take hold at some point during the game? The crowd's going crazy. Like there seems to be a belief, right, that you don't get everywhere.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of dome magic. The domes are the best venue in the sport, and I think there's so much history and tradition, and we wear that on our sleeves every day, and we carry it around in a good way. So I think the fans got behind us, and you could feel them early in the second half, and it just felt like the belief sort of started to snowball, and it was just an exciting game to be part of for sure.
Was there ever a moment of doubt into the fourth quarter? Like you guys clearly had taken some momentum, right? But they're hanging in. Like they didn't just give in right away. Was there any moment of doubt before it really flipped, right, when they had that unreleasable penalty?
I don't think any more than what we walked into the game with. Harvard is an elite team, and we knew that it was a 50-50 contest either way. You can look at their recruiting. They've had top 5 recruiting classes each of the last 4 years. So I know the seeding and the perception, but Harvard is as good a team as anybody. They have as good a losses as anybody. So, I think it wasn't doubt. It was just we're up against a really good opponent. We put ourselves behind the 8 ball a bit, but I think once we were able to sort of start to build momentum and sort of shake off. I think we had a little bit of a ACC tournament hangover. You play 2 top teams in 36 hours, wears on you a little bit. And I think we shook that and were able to sort of start stacking plays on both ends of the field.
John Odierna with us, Syracuse lacrosse defensive coordinator. A couple of your guys, the Long Poles, got into the mix with their first career goals yesterday. Go figure what a time for it. Nick Kakamo scored early and Chuck Kaczynski got one late. What are you seeing when your Long Poles are doing damage like that in the playoffs?
I mean, it's unbelievable. Great time to step up and make a play. Nick Kakemo, we waited. It's his 5th year. Good time to get his first goal. And Chuck Kaczynski's been scoring goals all year in practice. I actually made a joke last week. He scored like 2 plays in a row in practice. I'm like, one of these games, he's going to do it in a game. So he chose a good time for it.
Yeah, they both checked in at the right time for it. So I had Nick on last week, Tuesday, I think, and we were talking just like this, John. And, I've always known Nick to have the facial hair going. Then I see the video yesterday. He looked clean shaven. Did he playoff shave? I feel that's backwards here, John. What's going on with Nick?
Yeah, I can't speak to him specifically. I will say the guys on Thursday, the discussion was that we were all doing playoff beards, myself included here. So you can start to see I've got some type of shadow happening. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think we were all, I told the guys, my wife was coming into town. She lives on Long Island. So she was coming into town. I needed one more shave before she got here. And then I'll ride it out the rest of the way for at least 2 weeks until we bring home the trophy on Memorial Day.
Okay, there we go. It's not as significant as a commitment as like the hockey playoffs. You only got to do it for like 2.5 weeks. So that's not as bad, right, John?
Yeah, I'll take the trade. Nobody needs to see what my facial hair would look like after a month. That's not going to be good for me or anybody that has to look at me.
Okay, there we go. So I'm sure Kakemo's stuff will grow back quickly to get him ready, hopefully, for Memorial Day. So what's the process now? You win the game yesterday. How fast do you got to turn that around? There's a lot of emotion, right, coming off that. You got Princeton on Saturday. I imagine you're already deep into scouting for that. But how fast is the turnaround process for you guys?
Pretty, I won't say immediate. I think it's important to enjoy the win, at least for a few hours, enjoy it till midnight. And then when the clock rolls over into Monday, it's time to focus on the next thing. There's not too much time to celebrate, but you put so much work in and it's so hard to do this, and winning at this level is so hard. There's so many good teams, so many, everybody's got more coaches, more scholarships, all this stuff. You got to enjoy the wins. It's part of the process and part of what you work for. So enjoy it for a few hours, feel good. And then obviously once the clock struck midnight, it was time to roll it into Princeton. No time to feel too good about ourselves. And we just got in from practice. Did not talk about yesterday's game at all. We're on to Princeton.
All right, and I imagine when you tossed on the Princeton tape, you probably watched some of it live, right, on Saturday, John. You as a defensive coordinator are preparing for a team that just put 22 on the board. That locks you in real quick. What did you see from their game against Towson that's like, okay, this is tough to deal with right now?
Yeah, I mean, they're another elite offense. We went into the game yesterday. Harvard was the number 3 team in terms of offensive efficiency, and Princeton's number 4. So it's not going to get easier. In a lot of ways, I know we talk a lot about our offense. I would say in a way it's kind of like looking in the mirror. They have 6 guys that can score at any time. They all stir the drink. They could all attack you. They're all super high skilled. So it's a pretty cool matchup of 2 very historic programs that are sort of climbing their way back to the top of the ladder here. And I think it'll be a pretty exciting one. But defensively, we'll definitely have our hands full again with another really tough matchup.
Yeah, it feels like we're partying again like it's 20, 30 years ago now, right, with Syracuse and Princeton meeting in the playoffs. It used to be like literally annually. It felt like for about a decade there when Princeton was at the height of their powers with Bill Tierney. Sam English giving up any dirt here? I mean, he played with a lot of those guys. Sam, giving you any insight on what to look for here this week?
Yeah, he sought me out at the beginning of practice, said he wanted to talk about some of the guys. So we'll meet. I told him I want to do a little more digging on the film, and then we're going to meet sometime tomorrow and go over it all. We usually meet Tuesday and Wednesday to talk the defensive game plan and get him caught up. So I'm sure he'll give me some insight. Maybe let me know what their pregame playlist is or something like that too. And we'll take whatever help we can get. I'm no ego. I'll take all the help I can get.
Yeah, hey, you know how it is. I mean, you just went through it here last week. Like these games come down to one play essentially when it comes to it this time of year. I want to know what it's like here. John Mullen's been so good for you all year long, and the last month, I mean, it's next level, and obviously he totally dominated possession of the game yesterday. Obviously, that's great to have the ball, but what's it like to try not to be like, hey, we can't rely on this too much. You can't always count on him dominating. How do you handle that balance when you have a face-off guy that's cooking like John is right now?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Aquaviva, he coaches those guys. He's done an awesome job all year. And obviously when your face-off guy is playing make it, take it, it makes life easier for everybody, right? The more you play offense, the less they play offense. And the more you play offense, the more likely you are to score. So, I think you never want to rely on it. We had several games this year where we weren't, as dominant at the face-off X, and we were still able to have success as a team, right? So you never want to rely on it, just like you don't want to rely on having to hold a team to 5, and you don't want to rely on having to score 15 to win every time, right? So, right now we're just kind of challenging everybody to focus on what's right in front of them and win their area, whatever that takes. And the hope is that, in the biggest game of the year now on Saturday, because it's the next game, we can get all three phases clicking at the same time.
And, hey, you said it there. It's the biggest game of the year because it's the next game. It's also the biggest game of the year, right, because the Final Four's on the line. I know you guys have been able to shift the perspective kind of off that here, right, for the last couple of months. But now that it's quite literally in your lap here this week, is that a challenge? Does that tell you that thought process has been paying off? How does that go into this lead up to the Princeton game?
Yeah, I think it's built in. The pressure's built in. Everybody knows what's at stake. Everybody knows what's been at stake all year. Again, Syracuse is a place like nowhere else. We've got more fans, we've got best fans in the country, most educated fans. You guys are talking about us more than any place, in the country talks about lacrosse. So I think the pressure and the stakes is built in every day. We take that extremely seriously, and I think the big conversation today was, all year we sort of pointed back to last year's game, against Denver, where we didn't put our best foot forward as a program with a big opportunity, and we felt we had to earn the right to right that wrong, regardless of who was standing in front of us to do it. And now the conversation shifts to let's go all in on it, and put ourselves in the best spot to create a great result. You can be disappointed if you go all in and you don't get the result, but you don't want to have regrets that you didn't go all in. And that's, we felt like last year we maybe walked away with regrets. This year we're going to go all in and see if we can force the result in our way this time.
Do you look at anything from that Denver game last year, John, as like, okay, like this is something we need to avoid here? Or is it completely different because is Princeton? Like, was there something like specific to the quarterfinal game you can go back on, or is it just two different teams and that doesn't apply here?
No, I wouldn't say anything tactically. I think it's more emotional. This right now, Monday through Friday, I would say is the difference. I think for us last year, I know, again, the expectations are so high, but I think we arrived a year ahead of schedule. Last year it was, can we get back to the NCAA tournament? And then being the 4 seed, I would say surpassed what the expectations were going into the year. And I'm not sure we were ready to take the step yet emotionally. I think we had the talent. I think we felt we were ready to take the step until we learned the lesson, right? So I think this year it's totally different, but I think we learned a lot last year being in this position and maybe not realizing the stakes or how hard it is to get back to this spot. And, the big talking point I was on Friday, I'm starting to feel like I should get my own show here. Listen, you need a co-host. I'm your guy. But, I think what we're learning is the stakes are high and we've got to go all in on it. And now I think the expectations are so obvious. So, I think we're just excited to have earned the right. And it was a rocky road getting here. Obviously it's not, success. There's that classic coaching chart where success, it's not like this. It kind of goes up, then down, then up, then down, then up. Right. I think that's been sort of this year for us. So, we're not taking it for granted. It's extremely hard to get here. And there's a reason why there's only 8 teams left and we've earned the right to be one of them.
Don't threaten us with that hosting job, John. We might just take you up on it, and you'll be locked into that. Well, what do you think the atmosphere is going to be like? You're down on the island. You know the deal down there. Plus, it's Cornell, it's Princeton, it's Syracuse. This is pretty central to the fan bases that are going to be down there on Saturday. What do you think that whole vibe's going to be like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an awesome atmosphere, completely raucous. I think, like you said, Cornell, Princeton, Syracuse, all places that have strong Long Island ties and alumni bases and New York City based alums. So I think it's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. I think, I've had the opportunity to to play and coach at Hofstra throughout my career, in high school and college, all that stuff. I think Hofstra is one of the best venues in the sport. And, I grew up going to games there, NCAA tournament games. So it'll be a cool opportunity to go back. I'll have a lot of friends and family in the crowd too, but I think it's going to be just an unbelievable environment and one that we should be pretty comfortable playing in. We play in front of huge crowds all year long, and a lot of support. And when we go on the road, we get plenty of hate. So it'll be somewhere in the middle. And I'm excited for it. All of it's good.
Yeah, it's been one that has historically treated Syracuse well on this very weekend of the year. So we'll see if it does so again coming up this Saturday. Again, scheduled for 2:30. Syracuse and Princeton will be on the field after Cornell and Richmond get off going at noon. All right, John, congrats on a crazy one last night. Looking forward to some more fun on Saturday. Thanks, as always, for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, there he is, the next host of our station, John Odierna. Don't think we won't take him up on that. Don't threaten us with a good time, John. We'll work you into the mix here as we step aside here on this hour, brought to you by William Mattar. Hurt in a car, call William Mattar. Give us a call when we come back. Phone lines open the rest of the way. Talking Lax on a Monday, 315-437-7644. Phone lines open and available to you. A little football next hour as well. That Fran Brown is a busy boy. He's at it again over the weekend on the recruiting trail. All that and more as we roll along here on this Monday at Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Tronic only does pyramids for success. He did, Super Cat. A cuckoo melon? What the heck is a cuckoo melon? That's way too close to Cocoa Melon. This is a TV show that will terrorize you with its addictive properties for 2-year-olds. What's up, Bowling Ball? This is your home for Woo. That'd be, Kev. That it be. Got to stick it out, Bowling Ball. It's the playoffs. It's the playoffs. I didn't mean to ask him that, Super Cat. John, what the hell happened with 6 seconds left? Operator error on my part. It's a fact, Kev. There was a lot of yard work done this weekend. It literally took like almost an hour to just clean up the tornado that was the yard work. Where's this one going, Tim? Do I know a guy who really likes a hot dog? Oh, he relishes it. I get it.
NY. It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, back at it here on a Monday. The phone lines are open and available at 315-437-7644. We'll get to them here in just a second. They'll be open the rest of the way on this Monday after that bonkers Cuse lax win yesterday. Let's get our afternoon started on the phones, and that means our guy Scooter. What's up, Scoot?
Well, you got your wish. They started 7 o'clock last night to run the 315 horse and to break this.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's interesting that they waited this long because the horse has to be on the. In fact, if you want to see the drawing, there's only 9 horses. I think if you turn on FanDuel at 6 o'clock, you can see where actually the drawings where the horses are. Unless you get out of the one to the second, it really doesn't matter with 9 horses. But it's the shortest race of the 3. That's why I was surprised to see the Metallica horse, Sandman, entered because he's more of a come from behind horse. So I was shocked to see him in there. It looks like about 3 horses coming out of the Derby. Luca's got a horse. But the interesting part is, I think I mentioned, Coolmore's already bought the breeding rights to this horse. And he did that before the Santa Anita. So they wanted to breed this horse and get a lot of money for it, and I think they really felt confident he's going to win the Kentucky Derby. But he's taking a little bit of chance because if he doesn't beat these horses, he's going to lose a little bit of respect as far as the breeding rights go. So
yeah, got to get one of those triple crowns on your resume, right, for the breeding shed. Exactly,
especially with the horses that are running. Bafford's got a horse. Rodriguez is supposed to run. Got scratched again. He was supposed to be in the Derby. They scratched him. Bafford's got another fast horse, but it'd be interesting. The Preakness, unfortunately, it's lost its luster because the Derby horses that win aren't going there anymore. The casual fan. You know what the crazy part is, Brian? I'm not sure it's because of the Toby Keith Metallica thing, but it was the highest rated watched Derby in 25 years. And to me, I go back to, if you follow the horses, they had some popular horses, California Chrome and American Pharaoh, that were thought they had a great shot winning the Triple Crown, but 20, that's not bad. I mean, in a era, maybe the weather was so bad.
Yeah, I can't think of like a good reason why, like this year of all years, it would have been would have done that for the Derby. Like I understand why Belmont ratings go crazy. It's if a Triple Crown's on the line or not. Yeah, I don't know what would have done that for the Derby here this year.
Are you? I don't know if you watch NBA on a regular basis. To be quite candid, I only watch it when I got a dog in a hunt. Usually it's the playoffs because I'm bored. But to me, I guess growing up with the old school where you pass the ball and maybe don't dribble as much, it just seems to me that it's turned into a shooting gallery. You just spread the court, put 5 people out front. Nobody really wants to penetrate. One guy dribbles, maybe a high pick, and it's time to shoot. It's just, from an entertainment standpoint, I just have problems just watching from pure entertainment. And it was great that Boston finally hit their threes, but all it was basically warm-ups. I mean, they're just shooting threes, and nobody goes for the rebound. And to me, is that what the NBA is now? Just basically shoot 50 threes and hope that you hit 20 of them?
Yeah, I mean that's what stinks most. I think about it is that there used to be a stylistic difference between the teams. Like if you go you think like the Spurs and what they were doing with Tim Duncan around that, or you think the Jordan Bulls, you got the triangle offense, or the Knicks, you knew it'd be like this gritty basketball, or you could, or the Pistons certainly at the turn of the century, you kind of knew what the deal was, or the 80s bad boys, you knew what the different styles were. Now because of analytics, everyone's basically doing the same thing, at least within within 1 or 2% of each other. And I honestly, it's less the threes. I think that everything's the same. It's the similarity of it that I think gets a little old.
Well, the thing is, there's no movement. We always talk about Syracuse moving away from the ball. I don't see any movement. In fact, I got to be honest. I think Chris Bell's got a shot to make the NBA because they all stand in the corner.
He can do that. He can do that.
Right? I mean, he's 6'6". I mean, watch tonight's game. See if there's any movement. This looks like, even Brunson's still on the watch, but it's like 1-on-5. He's going to dribble. If you go back to the 80s with the Birds and the Magic Johnsons, even with Jordan, nobody had the ball in their hands more than 10 seconds. It's like 24 seconds. And I haven't seen a fast break yet where they actually pass the ball. It's usually some guy dribbles and he's going to pull up for a three or a corner. It's just, to me, like I said, I got the dog in the hunt, so I usually bet in games because if you don't shoot that was one of the most ugly games. I don't know if you caught any of the Denver game, OKC. I mean, God, I think they combined for 41 points in the first quarter. But you miss 14 threes. I think you might want to go inside, but that's the way I guess basketball is now.
Yeah, that's what it is, Scooter. All right, thanks as always
thanks, buddy.
For the call. There is our guy Scooter. Let's keep it moving on the phones. Next up, we got John in the Cuse for some MLAX. What's up, John?
How you doing?
Doing well.
I've been watching SU lacrosse for 40 years, and yesterday's game was one of the most undisciplined, sloppy, poorly coached games I've watched Syracuse play in years. And if they stub their toe this week, this team, with their talent, should go down in history as one of the most disappointing teams I've ever watched. I'm sorry, they bailed that game out, but it's inexcusable how they played. That's all I got to say.
All right, John. Sunshiny as always. The first half, yes. The first half was a mess. And, we know John is not a Gary Gate fan as a coach. The fact that Gary did not bang a timeout, that final possession that led to the turnover, that led to the game-tying goal, that's on the coach right there. You got to call a timeout. But the comeback was kind of fun. The comeback was fun. And the comeback is Syracuse lacrosse, right? Yeah, the first half was inexcusable. You can't. Home game, playoffs, you're down 8-2 at the break. Yeah, that is inexcusable. But then they excused it in the second half by coming back to win the game. That's it. You got to call a timeout. Sam English is fleeing two guys. When you have the timeout in the back pocket, I always think back to, and you always compare coaches. Coaches have pros and cons between them. Coach Desko in those situations late in the games, he'd be like walking down the sideline with his hands like almost in a T, like waiting to call the timeout, and like he'd be ready. He'd be ready to call those timeouts late in games. Like that was his area of expertise. Gary, I'm sure, would say if asked, they're like, yeah, I probably should have called one then. He's willing to wear it in situations like that. Thankfully, it worked out, and it worked out because he had a faceoff guy that basically doesn't lose faceoffs against Harvard. He went, what did he go yesterday? 24 or 28 after going 28 of 32 in the regular season. But what if Syracuse had lost yesterday? Would this be an all-time disappointing season? I don't know about that. It'd be disappointing for sure because you were preseason number 2 in expectations. But Syracuse has spent 4 decades having those expectations. Therefore, a lot of times if you don't reach the Final Four or win the national championship games, Syracuse lacrosse season, just by the nature of them, are disappointing in the end. I think back to 2003. It was Mike Powell's junior year. It's one of these things where you got Mike Powell. You've won the national championship the year before. You make the Final Four and get just absolutely worked by Johns Hopkins in the Final Four. It's like, oh man, that's how that ended. Like there's a lot of seasons that end in like, oh, huh. Think back to like 2013, the last time they were in the title game. You're up 5-0 in the national championship game. It's a game you should win. And then Duke won every Duke literally had the ball basically for the next hour of real time because they won every faceoff. It's like, oh, that's a kick in the face. Quarterfinals, Maryland, 2011. You're number one in the country. Trying to win your third championship in 4 years with this group. Galloway, Joel Wright, Jovan Miller, that whole crew. 6-5 Maryland, worst game ever. You're like, ugh. The year before, back-to-back national championships, first round, an Army team that you've beaten in the regular season. All of a sudden, it's things are going like you got the lead. What's going on? Then you lose in double overtime to Army. You had a chance to win 3 national championships in a row. Like, yeah, it would have been insanely disappointing if Syracuse lost yesterday. Insanely disappointing. But Syracuse lacrosse seasons basically go two ways. Championship or ending in disappointment. That is what happens when you win 11 of them. There are only 2 options at the end of the year. It is very rare a Syracuse lacrosse season ends in something other than championship or disappointment. Like last year, you could rationalize, like, okay, they made it back to the quarters, but think back in real time, that was a really disappointing loss to Denver last year. It is hard to come up with a season that did not end in something other than championship or disappointment for Syracuse historically. Like I look back at 06. They made it to the Final Four. They had missed the Final Four. The streak had ended the year before in 05. Obviously, that was disappointment. But you made it back to the Final Four and got absolutely just buzzsawed by an all-time great Virginia team. Like that was one where you're like, well, all right, tip your cap. Those are the rare scenarios. Most years for Syracuse, championship or disappointment. Yesterday, disappointment avoided, and it was avoided in the most spectacular of fashions against Harvard. All right, we'll take a break. Roll into the second hour. Phone lines remain open. Fran Brown talk, all that and more. 315-437-7644. Hour 2 next. Cuse Sports Talk, ESPN Radio.
The Sports Show.
Oh, John. I mean, John's not wrong about the first half, but the second half also occurred. Angry Man TV dinners. I'd say like half of Chris Bell's skill set is the NBA, shooting corner threes, but the D part of the 3 and D is not quite there for old Chris. So I'm still kind of shocked like Swider hasn't stuck, being 6'8" and being able to shoot it as well as he can. I know he's not like the best defender, but he's big. John versus Gorilla. 1,000 Angry Johns versus 1 Angry Gorilla. Or 100 Angry Johns. We'll give him 1,000. 1,000 Angry Johns versus 1 Angry Gorilla. That's all you got, Gorilla? It's the most disappointing Gorilla I've fought ever. I thought this Gorilla was going to rip my arms off. That's all you did? Stupid Gorilla. Kev will sell it. He is not going to attend John versus Gorilla fights anymore. Yeah. Are you dumb, gorilla, or just naive? It's like, I'm a gorilla. Love you, John. He's not in the chat. I mean, Syracuse lost to freaking Bryant in the first round in 2014. Bryant.
Radio. ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
Can we review our status here, Si? Let's look at this thing from a standpoint of status.
Can't go backwards. Can't go forward. What am I gonna do?
Hey, what happened? Lisa, if you don't like your job, you don't strike. You just go in every day and do it really half-assed. That's the American way.
I hope it's happy hour.
It's 5 o'clock.
They also lost to Bryant, Kev.
This is a great day. A really great day.
All across CNY, it's the 315 with Brian Higgins. Halfway home, we drive into the second hour with Burdick BMW.
Hour 2 is upon us. The phone lines remain available. 315-437-7644 for ESPN 44. Want to talk some MLAX? Want to talk anything else? You are more than welcome. A lot of lacrosse talk today after yesterday's bonkers 6 goals second half comeback win over Harvard to keep the season alive in the NCAA tournament. They got Princeton coming on Saturday. Went the other way for the Orange women yesterday. A forgettable season for a very young team this year for the Orange women. They were up 1 late in the second round at Yale and had it slip away down the stretch. There was some nugget yesterday. Apparently everyone that scored yesterday for the Syracuse women was in their first year of playing college lacrosse. So it tells you the future bright, but the season has ended for the women. More lax as we go along, more lax as the week goes along. We'll expect to be joined by a couple of players, we think, in the next couple of days. We'll get guy Kyle Federley on tomorrow. Kyle's always good for a little historical perspective. He's been there for essentially every game, one way or another, since they started winning national titles back in '83, either on the sideline or in the booth. So, you know, we've seen a lot of bonkers games like that. This one slots among them, but I think the level of where it slots is going to be heavily leaning on what happens the next 2 weeks. If it leads to Final Four, national championship, whatever, then okay. That was one of the moments that led the way to something. Like I always look back on, you know, various games, because Syracuse has played 8 million memorable lacrosse games over the years, right? Like a billion bajillion memorable lacrosse games over the years. But the memory of the game, especially in the playoffs, is really dependent on if the job is then completed. 09, Hofstra. Syracuse is going to Hofstra this weekend, Saturday, to take on Princeton at 2:30. Back 16 years ago, Syracuse went to Hofstra in the playoffs in 09. A sophomore, John Galloway, was trying to become the first freshman goalie ever to win it. The first goalie, what was the stat? John Galloway was the first goalie ever to win a championship as a freshman and then ever win another championship. He won his freshman and sophomore year with the Orange. John Galloway, one of the best goalies in the country, to go on to be a two-time first-team All-American goalie his junior and senior year. John Galloway got like food poisoning on the way down to Hofstra that year. Like, puke everywhere. Couldn't keep it in his stomach. Al Cavallari was the backup goalie during John's time at Syracuse. You'll remember Al from basically one game in his Syracuse lacrosse career. The quarterfinal game against Maryland that year at Hofstra, where Al played great, Galloway couldn't go, sick. Why do I remember that game? It was a great performance. He stood up and met the moment in the quarterfinals. He sent Syracuse back to the Final Four, where Maryland's goalie, Brian Phipps, was playing well early in the game, but tore his ACL celebrating a save in the first half and missed the rest of the game, as will happen. But why do we remember the Al Cavallari game? Why has Kyle been trying to build a statue for Al down at Hofstra for the last 15 years? Because a week after that, Syracuse played Duke and blasted them off the field at Gillette Stadium 17-7. And then 9 days after Al Cavallari had that game, it was Memorial Day, Monday afternoon. And Syracuse found themselves down 9-6 with about 5 minutes to go in the national championship game and rallied to score the game-tying goal, beating the buzzer, and then winning it in overtime against Cornell. Without the next two, the Al Cavallari game fades into history. The year prior to that, Syracuse played this absolutely bananas, bonkers, all-timer of a game in the semifinals against Virginia. The Orange were down 4-5 against the Cavs, late third, early fourth quarter. Virginia rallied back, tied the game, overtime. The overtime, like the ball is going up and down the field. Galloway's making saves. Virginia's goalie's making saves. Pipes. I mean, it's pandemonium. Second overtime, Mike Lavelle, senior at the time, wins the game. Why do we remember that game? Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was great. We remember that game because 2 days later, against Johns Hopkins, in a game where both teams showed up with 9 all-time national championships, Syracuse won the game. And they got to 10 first. The context of this Harvard game is completely dependent on what happens the next 3 weeks. It'll always be a great game. It'll always be a great game. That'll never change. But if it's the game that leads to Syracuse ending the Final Four drought, if it's the game that leads to Syracuse ending a 16-year championship drought, that goes on a different shelf then. That elevates it. Especially, depending on how it goes, if it's like the craziest win of the four. Like, you got to win 4 really, really tough games to win a championship now. There's no easy roads anymore. If Syracuse somehow wins the championship, and that's the game that was like the craziest of them all, which realistically, we've all watched Syracuse lacrosse for a long time. If Syracuse wins the championship, they're going to toss in a few other crazy things along the way. Even if they just win one more to fake the Final Four, they'll toss in something crazy on Saturday. That's just the way it goes. That's what 40 years, 45 years of championship history tells you. But it'll always be a great game. People will remember being there. The crowd was so good. Oh, man, listen to that game yesterday. Like, the crowd was so good for, like, the last half hour of the game. Like, it's never that loud for that long. Never. Not like that. Not consistently. And you'll remember you're at the game. I think Kyle said it yesterday. Like, there's 5,000 people here. In 10 years, 25,000 people will say they're here. It was one of those. But If they win the title, then it's really one of those, oh, I was at the game that led to this, that led to that led to championship number 12. We'll see where it goes. Great all-time game yesterday, but requires some historical perspective around it for sure. All right, phone lines remain open when we come back. And Fran Brown, Fran done good yet again over the weekend. We'll tell you about that after this. It's Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
All the drama.
Now recoils, fades and hits.
All the excitement.
Ace Bailey
all in one place.
Oh, he's the most active guy in the building.
The NBA playoffs.
Of the two all-time losses to Bryant, one of them involved slapping Doug Eder.
For your best
one of them involved
sponsored by
Kevin
Pawn
Massa
Pro on
winning every
Erie
single.
Boulevard East in Syracuse with your favorite local sports guys, Brian and
What
Paulie.
a great thing to think of bowling
Okay,
ball.
guys, today's question: what's more valuable, 1 pound of pure 24 karat gold or
Paulie? That's a big statement, Kev. So the football team may be deeper and technically more talented than last year, but the lack of the McCord and LeQuint and some guys like that is going to make it. That's like you're missing some really key veteran spots here, is my worry. The 2026 recruiting class, Melissa, is currently top 10. Yeah, I agree with you, San Diego Cuse. Like, you look at the line, like, I mean, the team is improving its get-off-the-bus traits, but well, maybe the quarterback can scramble more. If the quarterback's Steve Angeli, the quarterback might scramble less than McCord did, Kev, which is kind of wild to say. But you had a veteran. I mean, McCord was special. McCord was special. He's 6'10" in shoes. He wears big shoes. Yeah, McCord, like, I had no question last year going into the first 11 games of the season that Syracuse had the better quarterback. And save for when he threw those 5 picks against Pittsburgh, we were right. Heck, even in the Pitt game, didn't Pitt changed quarterbacks during the game? Like the BC loss, Syracuse still the better quarterback. BC changed quarterbacks during the game. They changed quarterbacks so bad, their quarterback left. He's at Florida State now. But, yeah, well, I like where they're going. I like what they did. I mean, but man, McCord, and then you go to the Miami game, like you didn't know if you had the better guy going in, and the first few drives you didn't, but by the end of the game, McCord outplayed Cam Ward, but that's still a fair fight. Like, regardless if it's Angeli or Collins this year, there's no way you're going in every game saying you got the better guy. Like, Clemson's week, 4? You're going into Klubnik. Miami will be starting Carson Beck, right? SMU's got, what's his name? Jennings back. Like, if your quarterback's Angeli, you're playing Notre Dame, you'll be playing somebody that beat him out for the job. Georgia Tech has Haynes King back. Oh, that's just off the top of the head. Yeah, we did not get a quarterback for Bryant. And that's not an insult to Angeli or Collins. That's just how good McCord was last year. That was one, I don't know, like McCord last year, like slow first few drives, like the last 2 drives of the half against Ohio in the season opener. I was bought in from that, from like halftime of the opener. I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy.
It's the 315 with Brian Higgins.
That it is. Phone line's open, 315-437-7644 if you'd like to chime in. Get Tim Leonard in a little 4-on-1 coming up next. I don't know if you've heard, he was at the lacrosse game last night. Woo! But let's get a little Fran Brown into our lives. It's like the countdown to the countdown. Our 100-day countdown to the season starts next Thursday. Prayers out. Prayers up. Please help. It's a genius idea. It's a terrible idea. It's all of it to count down 100 days to Fran Brown year 2. It's both my best and worst idea of all time simultaneously. But we'll do that starting next week. Today we'll talk about football because things have actually happened. Next week we're going to do it regardless. We do most days anyway. But we have a kick time, people. We have our first kick time of the season. And very oddly, the first game where we know where it's starting, when it's starting, is the 11th game of the year. What? That seems out of order. Don't we usually get the early games first? Thought we'd learn the Tennessee game first. Neither here nor there. Notre Dame earlier today released the the kickoff times for their home games this year on NBC. So Syracuse will be playing Notre Dame November 22nd at 3:30 on NBC. A nice middle of the afternoon game from South Bend, Indiana. Could be Steve Angeli versus his old team. Ooh, storylines afoot. We'll also have 10 other games of stuff that has happened before then, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of other storylines going into that one. But there we go. Know the first game. It is 3:30, not late night. Notre Dame does, I think they've got 3 of their home games are primetime games this year. So Syracuse, not one of the primetime games, but 3:30 NBC. No stink on that. Maybe our guy Noah Eagle will be on the call of that game. That would be nice. We'll see how that all goes coming up on November 22nd. So that's a little ways out. That's 6 months and 10 days from now. What's even further from then is when this guy will be on the football field for Syracuse. Amari Goff. Gough. Goff. Amari. A-M-A-R-E, spelled like Stoudemire. He is a 4-star wide receiver recruit from the Commonwealth of Virginia. He is a top 250 player in the class of 2026. A.k.a. the people will be freshmen next season, not this. He is the third 4-star now to have committed to Fran Brown to play in the class of 2026. And he is yet another member of what remains still, as we're getting deeper and deeper into it, a top 10 recruiting class. Will Syracuse end up as a top 10 recruiting class? Probably not. A lot of it's being done on volume now. Fran getting in there early and often. But we're getting closer and closer to June. Remember last year, and Amari will be up here on an official visit in June. And, things can change. Not everybody will remain committed. That's just not the way it is. But Goff was highly sought after. He's a top 250 player in the country. Mike McAllister was on Orange Nation, as he is every Monday on McAllister Mondays. And I forget if it was Steve or Paulie who asked him this. One of them asked Mike something like, all right, a little perspective. Obviously, we focused on basketball recruiting a lot longer than football recruiting to, digging down to this level. But, what's what, right? What is what? And he said, like, a top 300 recruit in football is akin to, like, a top 100 recruit in basketball. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good sliding scale. So a top 250 guy, 200 guy, this is like getting, number 60, number 70 recruit in the country in basketball. So it's pretty good. That's pretty good. There's another tier beyond it, but that's a pretty good get for Fran Brown. So he continues getting out there, stacking the recruits. Last year we were telling you about, 3 stars? High 3 stars. Well, now we're telling you about 4 stars. Okay. A third 4-star in the class. And, all right. Quarterbacks, you got the wide receivers. You're starting to stack them up. And then this month of June coming up will be key. This is May. The month of June is the next one. That'll be key because it's like every weekend in the month of June, Fran's doing the camps, Fran's doing official visits. There will be dozens of various players here on official visits during the month of June coming up. And it is done not coincidentally. I mean, schedules and when you can get guys, but you look at how Fran does this, and this is how everyone tries to do it, but Fran seems to be successful at it. And, full credit to, it's Fran, but full credit to the recruiting staff and who's ever organizing schedules and all this, because logistics. But they seem to be very good at getting a mix of, like, the highest caliber guys that they have verbaled in town at the same time as the highest caliber guys that are considering them but are not yet verbal, which leads to I think a pretty good collection of like, oh yeah, well I'm going there. Oh, you're going? Well, we're both really good. Maybe we should play together. Those weekends they play off each other, right? Think back to last year. It was like, oh, guys are here, and then you'd get to the Monday, Tuesday after, you'd be like verbal, and it's self-perpetuating. So all of that fun times will really start going in June. But a guy like this, having verbaled, all right, well, he's going to be here for a weekend in June. Who's here the same week as him? Who might, then they become buddy-buddy over the weekend, or they knew each other a little from this 7-on-7 camp, wherever the hell, and then it starts coming together. So will be fascinating times when we get into that in June for sure. With that, we'll take a break. We'll get Tim in next. 4-on-1 after a lax win in the Dome. That will be remembered for a long time. We'll talk to Tim after this here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Yeah, John's not angry about football anymore, Kev. Now it's lacrosse. ESPNU, which is still on the TV from the MLAX game the other day, is randomly just showing Duke blowing out North Carolina from this regular season of basketball. There's Malik Brown. What weird programming. Yesterday's game will be the Woo game. They're all the Woo game. Tim is doing just fine vocally. Every game's the Woo game, Tronic. Even the losses. There have been literally thousands upon thousands of Woos over the last 25 years. The triple Woo game, maybe. Embrace the Woo. You have to embrace the Woo. Kyle? Yes, Tronic. Always. Always. He's been wooing for a quarter century, Tronic. I once calculated that during my years working with Kyle, I was heavily ballparking it, and I'm probably undershooting it, that we probably shared about 3,000 woos. Kyle is the Forrest Gump of Syracuse. He has been there for everything. Kyle is the soon-to-be retiring head equipment manager for the athletic department. From Liverpool by way of Daytona Beach. Or I guess the other way. A Syracuse constant. I'm going to have to do like a whole Federley episode when I know what you hang up when you're done with the equipmenting business. Hang up your helmet. Your job isn't to hang up your helmet. You're hanging up other people's helmets. played? No. Though, because Kyle is the Forrest Gump of Syracuse, he was Art Monk's roommate their freshman year together. Why? I don't know. Kyle wasn't on any of the teams. That's what I don't remember, Tim. The woos blend together. I don't recall if he triple wooed at other times. Double woos, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, he was just Art Monk's roommate. And then he always tells some story about how Art Monk beat Edwin Moses in like an indoor hurdles race in like 1976.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, just look it up. I'm like, where? How?
That Kyle's lived 4 lifetimes.
He is the Forrest Gump of Syracuse.
Yeah,
he's just in every historical scene.
Yep. And he's retiring I mean, in terms of
I don't know if it's like I don't know if he's ever technically met the president, but he used to. I mean, I think he's still friends with the guy, but he's friends with a former Secret Service agent who was on White House details. So we got a private tour of the White House.
Yeah, that's right.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
That it is. Here we are. Tim Leonard has survived yesterday.
Still can't get over it, honestly.
He's still here.
Yeah.
Voice still functional, which
voice
is good.
Is fine, yeah. I mean,
because there's more playoffs to go.
Kyle's voice is probably the one that's hurting, because he has to do the loud woos. I don't know what would be tougher, actually. Let's see.
Yeah, the woos haven't harmed him yet.
Yeah, that's true. So, maybe you build up a woo tolerance over the years.
After like 4,000 of them, you just keep going.
Here's the 411.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
In the 315.
So you're going to be doing that all week, right?
Nah.
All right, Tim, I think we know what's going on. Like last night
we
happened.
Talk lacrosse,
yeah,
right?
I mean, just a fantastic game.
Yeah, I'm just so torn now on what to expect from this team on Saturday against Princeton because
not a clue.
I don't think we've been able to figure out this team all year. It's been such a roller coaster, and maybe there was a little bit of just the ACC championship hangover there. And I do think Harvard is better than maybe the average Syracuse fan was giving them credit going into the matchup.
Like Syracuse handled Sam King fine in both games, but he is a Tewaaraton finalist.
Yeah.
They have what people say is one of the best 5 guys in the country this year on their team.
And honestly, I mean, I was just talking with Coach O before you brought him on, basically, when he was in the break, and he was saying he thinks Harvard is the best offensive team in the country, even more than Cornell this year. And
well, I mean, when you factor in the fact they cannot win a face-off.
Right, and they still put up the 5th most goals per game. They're 3rd in offensive efficiency, like he said. I think he was coming at that from a standpoint of Cornell is the best offense of the country because they have C.J. Kirst, basically.
Yeah.
And he said Cornell's top 6 is the best, but when you factor in that Harvard's got 9 guys that are all, like, they go to their second midfield line.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
Yeah, all of them can dodge. All of them can shoot. I really think their midfield group as a whole is somehow underrated. I mean, Logan Ipp, to me, was the small guy that was kind of just dodging right by everyone on Syracuse, and he's also shooting 49% this year. So he was named a 3rd-team All-American by USA Lacrosse, and I think he could be considered a 1st-team All-American, honestly.
I do wonder how Syracuse will respond to this. It's like twofold, right? Like a lot of times you have a bonkers game like that. There's a natural letdown. And on the other side, like Syracuse lacrosse, and I get it. Does what happened in 1998 have any application to today? Or like I don't know, but the DNA of Syracuse lacrosse is like, yeah, okay.
Right.
All right, let's go play another one.
I do think there is something to the dome magic, and if you're Harvard, if you're a lacrosse player, period, that playing in the dome, I mean, the old saying is like you got to beat Syracuse twice or beat them 3 times when you're playing in the dome because they're going to make a rally on you probably, and it felt like Harvard actually had the counter punches at the end of the third quarter.
Man, they really, that's one where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Like Syracuse is in it now, but man, those are some big goals.
Like Nick Kikemo got his first career goal, which was amazing in his final Dome game. He's just not a guy that's ever on the offensive end of the field, and he kind of snuck in and got one right by the crease, scored, and it's 8-4 after Peyton Anderson scored, and those have been like a couple guys that have come through when Syracuse has had their backs against the wall this year. But when Kikemo scored at 8-4, it was like, all right, maybe that's the juice goal that gets things going. And then it didn't really because Sam King had a nice goal, and they kind of separated a little bit from there.
Yeah, it happened again, early in the fourth, right? It was, they got it to 10-6 or something?
Yeah, 10-6.
Then Harvard scored again. You're like, man, you just can't gain any traction. So you get to the penalty, right? Whatever the score was at that point, it's hard to
It was 11-6 so in the penalty. Oh, actually 11-7 because Luke Roa scored right before. Yeah.
And you get the penalty. Then it's like you're trying to get into it. And you're like, how was that not a 2-minute penalty? And by the time you sort all that through, Syracuse has scored 3 goals. And it was what is going on right now?
Yeah, and underrated, I know that everyone was kind of on Gary. Why didn't he call a timeout when there was 30 seconds left or so? And Sam English turns it over. I thought it was a very smart timeout by him and the entire coaching staff when they had scored 2 on the man up.
Yeah, catch your breath.
Yes, and you want to get the face off and then get your right personnel onto the field. And it takes so much time to do that. There was only 25 seconds left on the penalty. It actually led to Chuck Kaczynski scoring off a face. He had a man-up goal of all the times to have his first career goal.
Makes total
deep
sense.
goal,
yeah.
Because he was a winger, but you'd prefer to have your full unit of, not just the face-off wingers out there. So I thought that was smart and really impressive from the crowd. Like you said, once they reached that peak volume, they never sat down. And even though maybe if you were with a different lacrosse city or lacrosse crowd, if a head coach makes a timeout there, the crowd might not be as into it when we get back. And the crowd just stood the entire timeout, and then the man-up momentum continued.
The Dome first-round playoff crowd is always unique because it's, especially since they've gone to the current tournament format, and it basically always lands on Mother's Day weekend, graduation weekend, and just based on the nature of it yesterday, I mean, usually it's the 7:30, or it's the 5. Like, if you're going to be at that game, you are committed to the cause.
You're a diehard.
There are games with bigger crowds. There are games where, the peak moments are louder. But if you are at that game, you are all in on the situation. So it was the right crowd for the right time.
Yeah, I feel like Syracuse lacrosse, and I made the statement on Orange Nation earlier that I really can't recall a time where the crowd just totally took over a game in the Dome.
It was it was for such a long, usually there's an exhaustion that builds, and you Syracuse crowds and fans complain about it for years. It's there's the stand and clap, right? Then everyone sits down.
Yeah.
Or people stand up and the person sitting next to them is like, why are you standing? Sit down. Last night, everyone in the building was standing for a half hour of real time. I mean, it was a long time.
Right. And I realize, I've only been really able to go to the Dome and watch games for 10 years. So I haven't seen some of the great Dome moments, of course. That really the one that stands out to me from a football perspective was Miami this year. It got really loud in there. And I would say that was the loudest I've heard it.
But it still has the ebbs and the flows of it, right? I mean, you have the delays, you have the timeouts.
Exactly.
The
People
crowd
sit down.
You can't keep it up for that long. As far as consistency, it was legitimately a half hour straight.
Yeah, and I would also argue that football players are used to playing in hostile environments. Sure, the loud house, and it's definitely was deafening in there at times for the Miami players, but I don't remember where they played on the road this year, but they probably had comparable moments maybe where it's okay, that was a really tough environment, and we had to change the snap count or whatever. Lacrosse, the average Syracuse crowd, which that was pretty much what it was yesterday, 5,000, because it's Mother's Day and there's a lot going on, graduation, everything. It was a nice day. I think the average...
And it's the tournament. You're getting an exact ticket count.
Right, that's true. That definitely plays a factor as well. But the average lacrosse crowd, Harvard has not seen anything close to that. Well, I guess they played in the Dome this year, but outside of that... And that's where it makes more of an impact on the game, a lacrosse crowd like that, than maybe other sports.
Yeah, you think of anywhere Syracuse play, there's nothing that's comparable. Like Hopkins gets great crowds; those are great atmospheres, but it's not quite the same. You think about anywhere else, like there's sometimes like Syracuse always draws the biggest crowd of the year to Notre Dame every time they go. It's fun, but there's a lot of Syracuse fans there.
Well, the Ohio State Notre Dame game, which unfortunately that crowd didn't have much to cheer about from a Buckeye perspective.
Certainly not if they paid those secondary market prices.
I was going to say that sold out, but they just built that new facility. It's a nice facility, but I think it literally is 2,000 fans capacity.
Tickets were going for multiple hundreds of dollars on the secondary market, but like they could have tripled that crowd in the Dome and maybe equaled what they had there yesterday.
Yeah, and just the fact that a pretty premier program, granted Ohio State is having probably one of its best years, but still they're a solid, reputable program, and they're like, okay, we've got a new facility. Yeah, 2,000's all we need.
That's enough. Yeah.
And Syracuse is getting, 5,000 on a random game. Like the opener drew 5,000 this year. So I think the legend of the Dome has more of a place in lacrosse than maybe other sports. Like you can speak to that, just the mystique of kind of you're never down and out when you're talking Syracuse lacrosse in the Dome. And I think it definitely has a mystique for all sports really, but it just feels like a lacrosse player like really is, starstruck's not the right word, but just in awe by the Dome when they're there.
Like in football and basketball, I'd say what I like most about the Dome, and people are like, oh, build a basketball only. I like the Dome for those sports because it's unique. Like, okay, you're not playing basketball at a venue like this that can fit 30,000 people at anywhere else. Or okay, that's kind of cool. You're right. The mystique is there more for lacrosse.
Yeah.
When you talk mystique-wise, and when I said it earlier, like Terry Foy from Inside Lacrosse tweeted yesterday, it's like Syracuse is Syracusing again. Why? Because it's happened 8 bajillion times in this building. You say it was a great game yesterday, and it was. But if you've been going to Syracuse lacrosse games since they opened the Dome, you've seen that game 50 or 60 times because it just keeps happening. It's nuts.
And there's probably something to be said, too, for lacrosse. You can come from behind from what feels like a crazy up. Like, they scored the 4 goals on the man up, and in basically a minute and 30 seconds, they had tied the game. It was crazy how quickly it happened. And when you get a hot face-off guy and you get kind of the momentum on your side, maybe more so than other sports, lacrosse, you have that ability to go from out of it to right in it right away.
John Mullen's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it helps a lot. I mean, if he can just get, 65%, 60% this week, I think then that would be a huge, huge game for him because it does feel like Princeton's getting a little bit better at the right time face-off wise. And obviously from here on out, he's definitely going to see tougher matchups. Like Harvard was one of the worst teams in the country all year facing off. But that was one of the things that stood out. I thought it was a little overblown when people were saying this is a good draw for Syracuse because I viewed Harvard as one of the best teams in the country outside of face-offs and knew they had already...
Princeton's really good.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think you can make a case that Harvard-Princeton is the toughest path. Like if they were to beat Princeton and get to the Final Four, I don't know if there's any other Final Four path in terms of 2 games that is as tough as what Syracuse will have to do this year because of some of the upsets.
Obviously, Syracuse is... Well, it's the only game next week with 2 seeded teams, right? They seed the top 8. There were 3 upsets in the first round, so it's the only game with 2 seeded teams next. Cornell's got Richmond. It doesn't really feel like it with Notre Dame because they're 2-time defending national champion. They've got
Notre Dame has a case for
Penn
toughest
State.
Path. I would say going to Ohio State, then Penn State on a neutral site.
Yeah. But at the same time, Notre Dame be like, toughest path, we're better than both of them.
Right.
What's a tough path? If they blow up Penn State this week and Maryland's got Georgetown look really good, but Georgetown in the quarterfinals, that's a water and oil situation
I know.
Of late. But yeah, I mean, this Princeton's really good. And man, Cuse Princeton, we haven't talked to Cuse Princeton a lot in a long, long time. I don't know if you've looked this up yet. I want to say, Tim, the last time they played in the playoffs, it's been since 2003, I think.
I think so, yeah. I think it's the 11th time they played in the playoffs.
I mean, there was a span. It was literally a decade straight where the stat in college lacrosse was Princeton either won the national title or lost to Syracuse in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think that was legitimately 10 straight years, if not longer, than 2003 3, I want to say. The quarters were in the Dome. Princeton was the higher seed, and the Orange got them. And then that's when Princeton tailed off. Like, they just never... Princeton made the Final Four the next year, but was on the other side of the bracket, and they just haven't played again in the playoffs since. So this will be fun. A little old rivals.
It
finding
feels
themselves.
right, on Long Island, all of it, and Cornell in the game before. It should be a great crowd out there, I would hope. Looks like a nice day too, which lately Syracuse has had bad days on Long Island weather-wise.
They can play for Sam English's spleen.
Exactly.
The winner gets that. All right, so Tim will be down on the island on Saturday, 2:30 scheduled.
Yes.
Face off. Good luck with
We'll go on the air, too.
You're going to be on. You got the right guy with you to fill the time. But,
Right.
that second game never, ever starts on time.
No.
0% start on time rate. All right, we'll take a break. We'll tell you what's on tap after this. Cuse Sports Talk, ESPN Radio. Oh, I hate the second game of the doubleheaders.
I can't remember if Cal said it on air or off air, but when we went into the post-game stuff, he was just like, I'm speechless. Like, that says a lot for me. It's like,
I like how Kyle will say he's speechless and then talk for 5 minutes straight.
And at one point, he was just like, blah, 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 blah. I can't even say anything about this. He's cracking me up.
Yes, and then get Maryland if they get through at Supercat. That's the...
Yeah, although I think Georgetown, I know the history, like you said. They always do this.
Yeah, I just, if it's Georgetown in the quarters, you bet against Georgetown.
Yeah, exactly. They've literally made the tournament, I think the second longest streak among teams in the tournament is, or like longest active streak of winning your conference tournament is Georgetown behind Maryland.
Yeah, like they're in every year.
Yeah.
They win their first round a lot, and then they'll just,
But Aiden Carroll, like, he's almost playing at such a level. He's their best guy, and he scored literally, I think it was 5 straight gols.
Yeah,
at one point.
And then there was they got some transfer from Notre Dame on attack who I'd never heard of at Notre Dame.
Okay. Maybe I haven't looked into him.
No, I caught the end of that game Saturday night, and it was Anish. Anish is like, Notre Dame transfer attackman. I'm like, Notre Dame?
Yeah. He must be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I think he was just buried on Notre Dame's bench, but he was killing it.
I think a lot of the lacrosse pundits were like, we'll just pick Cornell because it's a wide open year and they have CJ Kirst. And like Georgetown, maybe in a wide open year, if you have a guy like Aiden Carroll, it's like that year UNC with Cloutier just went, what was that, 2016?
Yeah.
And he just took over.
He just went crazy in the Final Four that year.
Right. And they were unseeded that year.
They won at Notre Dame in the first. Marquette? They went to the Midwest somewhere and won. I think it was like Marquette.
State, right? Or no?
They beat Maryland in the title game. That was back in the time where Maryland made the title game every year and lost.
Right. Yeah, they definitely he had like 9 goals in the semifinal. And then maybe like 5 or 6.
Yeah, just like, it's just 6.
He was like big dude too.
Oh yeah, he was like this just like fat little dude, but he just couldn't stop scoring. Yeah, Cornell's offense is really good. Their top 6 is fantastic. I think that's what Kark was saying last week, too. It's the way they play. You can't just shut off Kirst and deal with it because he does so much, like the other guys can take advantage of it. What is on tap tonight? ESPN.com is trying to trade for Giannis, but we got Knicks, Celtics.
It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Hi, back out of here on this Monday. Hey, don't forget Taste of Syracuse, the Summit Federal Credit Union Taste of Syracuse. We are less than a month out. June 6th, June 7th, Clinton Square area. $2 food samples. We'll be out there with shows Friday and Saturday. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Getting ready for that. Taste of Syracuse. As always, coming up at the beginning of June.
Here's what's on tap tonight.
Well, you got to figure out something to do before Taste of Syracuse gets there. What do we got coming up tonight? We got some of the basketball. We got some of the hockey. 2 hoops games tonight. Game 4s. Celtics trail the Knicks 2-1. That's 7:30 ESPN. 10 o'clock tonight. Golden State trailing Minnesota 2-1. That game in California. A couple of games in the NHL. Game 4's round 2 NHL as well. These games are on TNT. Carolina Panthers at 7, hosting the Capitals. And in Canada tonight, in Edmonton, Connor McDavid and the Oilers host Dan Duva's Vegas Golden Knights. Edmonton leads that series 2-1. So there we are. Playoff action tonight. Yankees are... Where are the Yankees? They're somewhere. The Yankees are on the West Coast. They're on the West Coast. Where are they at? Are they at Seattle? Where are the Yankees hiding? Where are the Yankees hiding? Stand by. I forgot where the Yankees are, other than on the West Coast. Yes, it is the Mariners. That is a 9:40 first pitch. You can hear it, of course, over on TK99 with the coverage there. What's on tap for the program tomorrow? We expect to have Kyle Federle on. He can detail the triple woo final call and get us ready for Cuse and Princeton this week. It is one of those crazy games. We'll see where Kyle puts it in the annals of Syracuse lacrosse, or if it just blends into the tapestry of that happening seemingly once or twice a year for the last few decades. We'll get to that tomorrow right here, 4 o'clock. It's Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
This